Hello, my beautiful Libra. Take a quiet moment for yourself. Relax your shoulders, take a deep breath, and allow yourself to be open to whatever unfolds in this reading. Not every detail will resonate with you, and that's perfectly okay. Keep what truly speaks to your heart and gently let the rest drift by. The energy I'm picking up on here feels pretty special. It feels like there's someone who has spent a very long time trying to ignore their feelings, trying to push them aside, trying to convince themselves that they could simply move on. But honestly, that doesn't seem to be working anymore. The more they try to move forward, the more they find themselves pulled back toward thoughts of Libra. The more they try to tell themselves this connection doesn't matter, the more they're beginning to realize that it left a much deeper mark on their heart than they ever wanted to admit. And what's really interesting here is that this shift doesn't seem to be happening because of anything Libra is doing. Wow. It feels like it's happening because this person is finally starting to see things they couldn't see before. Things they may have avoided. Things they may have pushed into the background. Things they may not have been ready to face. Because once they stopped running from the truth, even for a moment, their perspective began to change. Okay, let's take a closer look and see what story the cards are beginning to reveal. I'm picking up on this energy very clearly from the moment I lay the first cards down. This doesn't feel like a passing thought. It doesn't feel like one of those fleeting moments that shows up and then disappears. This feels more like a train of thought that's been quietly living in the background for a very long time, and now it's becoming too big for them to ignore. I keep seeing someone returning to memories connected to Libra. Simple things, ordinary things, a conversation, a certain look, a moment where the two of you sat together for a long time without needing to say much at all, a song, a road, a familiar scent. It's almost as if the harder they try to move forward, the more they find themselves being pulled back by things they thought were already behind them. And then the Six of Cups card comes through. Wow. The energy of this card feels like an old film replaying itself inside someone's mind. I feel this person revisiting so many moments connected to Libra. What's interesting is that they're not only remembering the big moments, they're remembering the small ones. The details they once thought didn't matter. The things they barely paid attention to at the time. And somehow, those are the very things softening their heart now. The more they reflect, the more they realize there were things they unintentionally took for granted. Things they assumed would always be there, always waiting, always available, always the same. But life doesn't always work that way. Because when someone begins to change, when someone begins to move forward, everything around them changes too. And honestly, I feel like this person is starting to see that. They're beginning to realize that Libra is no longer standing in the same place where they left them. There's something about this energy that feels like a delayed awakening. And right as that feeling comes in, the Judgment card appears. Not loudly, not dramatically, just with this very honest feeling. Almost like someone suddenly seeing the entire picture after spending years staring at individual pieces. I keep hearing questions inside this energy. Why didn't I see that back then? Why did I think I had so much more time? Why did I let fear make my decisions for me? These are the kinds of questions that show up when someone starts facing themselves. No more blame, no more excuses, no more trying to prove they were right, just the truth. And sometimes the truth is surprisingly simple. They didn't realize how important Libra truly was until distance entered the picture. I do feel regret here, but not the dramatic kind, not the kind that demands attention. This feels quieter, more personal. The kind of regret that shows up when nobody else is around, in private moments, silent moments, honest moments. Then the Nine of Swords card appears, and wow, this feels like someone who's had a hard time turning their mind off. Not because Libra is doing anything, not because Libra is trying to pull them back, but because their own thoughts keep bringing them there. Old decisions, old silences, missed opportunities, things they wish they had said, things they wish they had done differently. I feel them trying to piece everything together. Trying to understand where things shifted, trying to understand how they ended up here. But the more they look back, the more they realize that some wounds didn't come from what happened. They came from what never happened. Conversations that were never had, truths that were never spoken, steps that were never taken. And Libra, I have to be honest, the way they see you now feels completely different. You're no longer the person they thought they already understood. You're no longer a familiar presence they unconsciously assumed would always be there. They're beginning to see your value in a way they never did before. They see your sincerity, your patience, your heart. They see things they overlooked because they were too busy fighting battles inside themselves. And then the Moon card appears. The energy immediately becomes deeper, quieter, more reflective. I feel so many emotions here that were never fully expressed. So many things this person kept hidden. In some ways, it feels like they were even hiding from themselves. They spent a long time convincing themselves that this connection wasn't that important, that eventually everything would fade away, that they could simply continue with life as usual. But feelings don't disappear just because we ignore them. They go deeper. They settle beneath the surface. And then one day, stronger, clearer, more honest than before. And honestly, that feels like exactly where this person is standing right now. In the middle of countless thoughts, countless memories, and realizations they probably should have faced a long time ago. For the first time in a very long time, they're no longer running from those feelings. They're looking directly at them. Looking directly at the value of Libra. Looking directly at the place Libra has always held inside their heart. And something tells me, this story still has a lot more left to say. There's something about Libra that this person can't seem to look away from. Not in an obvious way. Not in a way where they're constantly showing up or trying to insert themselves into your life. It's more like they're standing at a distance, quietly observing, quietly watching, quietly feeling. And the more they watch, the more they realize just how much has changed. And then the star card appears. Wow. The energy of this card feels like a soft light shining across a wide open sky, not blinding, not demanding attention, not trying to prove anything, and yet somehow it's impossible to ignore. That's exactly how Libra feels to me right now. You no longer carry the energy of someone waiting for another person to recognize your worth. You no longer feel like someone trying to prove yourself to anyone. There's something incredibly peaceful here, something natural, almost as if after a long journey, you've started finding your way back to yourself. And honestly, that's what's confusing this person. Because for a long time, they believed that if they stepped back, if they stayed silent, if they avoided making a choice, everything would simply remain where they left it. But life doesn't stand still. People don't stand still either. And I feel like they're slowly realizing that Libra continued to grow while they were busy wrestling with their own fears. Sometimes they see you smiling. Sometimes they catch a glimpse of you carrying an entirely different energy. Maybe it's a photo, a post, a brief conversation. Or maybe it's just their intuition telling them that you're no longer standing in the same place. Whatever it is, it's making them think a lot. Then the Strength card comes through right beside it. And this energy doesn't feel like a battle at all. It feels like someone who learned how to remain standing after weathering countless storms. I don't feel Libra trying to prove their strength. Actually, it's the opposite. The calmer you become, the more this person notices the transformation. They're beginning to see things they never saw before. They're seeing how you handled pain, how you kept moving forward, how you refused to let what happened define your entire story. And what's really interesting here, that quiet strength seems to be waking them up more than any confrontation ever could. I feel like this person spent a long time preparing explanations in their head, excuses, scenarios, reasons for why things happened the way they did. But when they see Libra doing well, living peacefully, shining in a way that feels effortless, all of those explanations suddenly lose their importance. Because the one thing they truly feel now is distance. The distance between who they thought Libra would always be and who Libra is becoming. Then the Queen of Cups card appears, and immediately the energy softens. It becomes warmer, deeper, more intimate. I feel this person beginning to see the beauty inside Libra in a completely different way. Not just attraction, not just emotion, but presence, gentleness, authenticity. There's a feeling here that they spent so much time focused on the things that frightened them that they failed to notice something precious sitting right in front of them. But as time passes, they keep looking back. And every time they do, they discover another reason to appreciate Libra, another reason to admire you, another reason to wonder how they missed what was there all along. And the interesting thing is, none of this feels forced. Nobody is convincing them. Nobody is explaining anything to them. Nobody is asking them to see things differently. It's happening naturally, like an awareness slowly unfolding inside their heart. Then the Nine of Pentacles card appears. Okay, this is the moment that really makes me pause, because the feeling coming through here is incredibly clear. This person is seeing a version of Libra that can be happy without depending on them. A Libra who knows their value. A Libra who is building a life of their own. A Libra who isn't placing their future in someone else's hands. And strangely enough, that's what starts making them nervous. Not because Libra changed, but because they realize that if they remain standing still, they may lose the opportunity to walk alongside someone they've come to value more than they ever expected. This feels like the first time real fear shows up. Not fear of commitment, not fear of getting hurt, not fear of rejection, but fear of watching a door slowly close while they're still standing there trying to gather the courage to walk through it. Something in this energy is shifting very quickly now. A new awareness is taking shape. A new perspective is opening. And honestly, I don't think this person can continue seeing Libra through the same eyes they once did. There's a feeling here that this person spent a very long time trying to keep everything under control. Their emotions, their thoughts, the way they appeared to other people, even the things their heart truly wanted. But honestly, the energy feels very different now. Something is beginning to crack open from the inside. Not because someone forced it, not because life backed them into a corner, but because they simply can't keep living the way they've been living. The Hermit card appears first, and the energy immediately becomes quiet, still, reflective. I'm seeing someone spending more time alone than they used to. Not because they're hiding from the world, but because they're finally trying to listen to the things they've ignored for far too long. Certain questions keep rising to the surface. Questions they've spent years avoiding. Why did I react that way? Why do I run when things start feeling real? Why do I push people away when all I really want is to feel close to them? And the deeper they go, the more they begin to realize that many of their past decisions weren't made from a place of peace. They were made from fear, fear of getting hurt, fear of not being enough, fear of fully opening their heart to another person. And Libra, somehow you've touched all the places they've spent years trying to hide. I keep getting the feeling that they once believed distance would make everything easier, that if they didn't face their feelings, those feelings would eventually disappear, that if they kept moving forward, they wouldn't have to look back. But that's not what happened. Because when the Death card comes through, I see a door beginning to close. Not a door leading away from Libra. A door leading away from an older version of themselves, the version that was always guarded, always suspicious, always trying to protect itself by keeping people on the outside. Something is changing at the root, slowly, quietly, but very, very genuinely. And the more this transformation unfolds, the more they realize how long they've been making life harder for themselves. I'm seeing someone finally recognizing their own self-sabotaging patterns. The times they stayed silent when they should have spoken. The times they walked away when they should have stayed. The times they pretended not to care even though their heart had been invested all along. And little by little, those pieces are starting to connect. Then the energy shifts suddenly. The Tower card appears. Wow. This feels like a truth that can no longer stay hidden. Not necessarily an external event. Not some dramatic situation happening around them. This feels internal. Like a moment when someone can no longer lie to themselves. I keep feeling this energy of surrender. Not surrendering to another person, but surrendering to the truth. The truth that they've felt more than they've ever admitted. The truth that Libra has affected them more deeply than they allowed themselves to believe. The truth that running away isn't making anything easier anymore. And what's interesting is, I don't feel like they're falling apart. I feel like they're waking up. Because immediately after that, the Eight of Pentacles card appears. And for the first time in a long time, I see movement. Not just thoughts, not just regret, not just longing. I see someone wanting to do something with everything they've realized. Now, they may not have all the answers yet. They may still have things they need to work through, but the desire to change is here. The desire to grow is here. They want to heal the parts of themselves that cause them to miss important things. They want to learn how to love without constantly being afraid. They want to learn how to stay instead of leaving, how to speak honestly instead of hiding, how to trust instead of always preparing for disappointment. And honestly, this feels like a very important chapter, because for the first time, they're no longer blaming circumstances. They're no longer blaming timing. They're no longer blaming other people. They're looking directly at themselves. And strangely enough, the more they do that, the more clearly Libra appears in their heart, not as a distant fantasy, not as a memory that's already over, but as a reason to become a better version of themselves. There's something being built here from the inside out, a new foundation, a new perspective, a new way of loving. And I'm getting the feeling that their journey is still unfolding, just in directions they never expected it to go. What's really standing out to me now is that there's a noticeable shift happening in this energy, because the deeper I go into this reading, the less it feels like this is only about emotions. It's slowly becoming a story about the place Libra holds in this person's life. I'm seeing them think more about the future, not some distant future, not some far-off dream, but the everyday things, the practical things, the kinds of things they never really allowed themselves to imagine for very long before. It feels like they're beginning to ask themselves a very different question. No longer, do I have feelings for Libra? But instead, What would my life actually look like if I opened that door? And the moment that thought comes through, the Four of Wands card appears. And wow, I'm seeing peaceful scenes, laughter, gatherings, simple moments shared with familiar faces. There's something inside this person that's craving real connection. They're no longer satisfied with keeping everything at a safe distance. No longer satisfied with letting things exist only as unspoken thoughts and hidden emotions. I'm getting the feeling that they're beginning to imagine Libra stepping into their world. Not the version of themselves they show everyone else, but their real world, the private corners, the personal stories, the parts of themselves they don't easily share. Because the older we get, the more we realize that allowing someone into our life in a meaningful way is actually a very special thing. And what's interesting is, Libra keeps showing up in those thoughts. More and more. I feel like they want you to understand them. To understand what shaped them into the person they are today. To understand the fears they've carried, the wounds they've tried to hide, even the imperfect parts of themselves they've spent years keeping out of sight. Then the Hierophant card comes through, and the energy immediately becomes steadier, slower, more mature. I don't see impulsiveness here. I don't see temporary feelings or rushed decisions. Quite the opposite, actually. I feel someone beginning to think seriously about what can truly last, about what really matters, about the kinds of connections that remain meaningful over the years. It's almost as if life has taught them enough lessons to understand that not every connection carries the same weight, and not everyone makes them want to open their heart like this. I'm seeing them thinking about the people closest to them, friends, family, the people they trust, the people whose opinions have mattered to them for a long time. And honestly, what's changing here is that instead of keeping Libra separate from that part of their life, they're beginning to imagine those worlds coming together. They want the important people in their life to know about Libra. They want to see Libra present in spaces that once belonged only to them. They want to share more, be more open, be more honest. Then the Three of Pentacles card appears, and this energy feels incredibly warm, because it isn't about grand promises. It isn't about dramatic declarations. It feels more like someone beginning to think about building something meaningful with another person. Little by little, step by step, without rushing, without forcing anything, just creating something real together. I'm getting the feeling that this person is starting to understand that love isn't only about feelings. It's about showing up. It's about partnership. It's about cooperation. It's about choosing the same direction together. And every time they think about that, they see Libra very clearly. Not as someone who simply passed through their life, but as someone who could become part of the future they're quietly trying to build. Then the Ten of Pentacles card appears, and I have to say, this energy is beautiful. It carries a feeling of fullness, of something nurtured over time, of a future that no longer revolves around one person alone, but around two people. I'm seeing this person thinking much further ahead than they used to. Maybe they haven't said any of this out loud. Maybe most of these thoughts still live inside their heart, but something has undeniably shifted. Because before, they were only thinking about their feelings. Now they're thinking about Libra's place in their life. They're wondering what might happen if they don't miss the opportunity this time. If they're brave enough to let someone see their true heart. If they're brave enough to stop keeping this connection hidden in the shadows. Honestly, this feels like a chapter where the future is beginning to come into focus. The picture isn't fully complete yet, but it's becoming clearer. And as those images continue to unfold in their mind, I can't help but feel that an important decision is quietly taking shape inside them. There's a feeling here that everything inside this person has finally reached a point where they can no longer stand between two choices. They've thought about this. They've watched. They've questioned themselves. They've searched for answers from every possible angle. And yet the farther they traveled, the more they kept returning to the same place. The same name, the same feeling, the same connection. Then the Two of Wands card appears. And what I'm seeing here feels like someone standing in front of an open doorway, no longer looking behind them, no longer focused on what was lost, but finally looking ahead. And honestly, there's something very different about this energy. For a long time, they hesitated. They let time make decisions for them. They hoped things would somehow become clear without having to take action. But that energy is changing. Because they're beginning to understand that some things in life don't happen unless we're willing to take a step toward them. And I'm getting the feeling that Libra is one of those things. This person is starting to think more practically now. It's no longer just about feelings. It's no longer just about dreams or imagination. They're thinking about what needs to be done, what needs to be said, what needs to change. In order to genuinely move closer to Libra, I keep seeing them replay conversations in their mind, words that were never spoken, apologies that never found their way out, moments they wish they had handled differently. Sometimes they imagine how Libra might respond. Other times they fall back into doubt and start questioning everything all over again. But unlike before, they don't seem willing to quit halfway through this process. Because the more they think about it, the more they realize they don't want to keep living with regret. Then the Emperor card comes through, and the energy immediately becomes stronger, more grounded, more stable. I feel a part of them growing up very quickly. The part that used to fear responsibility, the part that used to fear commitment, the part that used to fear making a final decision. But now they're beginning to understand something important. Avoidance is a decision. Silence is a decision. And those decisions created the distance between them and someone they deeply care about. There's something inside them standing up. Not to control everything, but to take responsibility for what they truly want. And honestly, this feels significant. Because I'm seeing someone slowly step out of passivity. They're no longer waiting for change to happen on its own. They're beginning to want to become the person who creates that change. And wow, I have to say, this is the strongest sense of initiative I've felt from them so far. Then the Ace of Wands card appears, and there's a brand new energy forming here. It feels like someone lighting a fire after sitting in the dark for a very long time. This doesn't feel reckless. It doesn't feel impulsive. It feels like motivation, like inspiration. Like the moment someone realizes they still have a chance to change the direction of their story, a chance to do something differently than they did before. I'm seeing them wanting to open a new chapter. A chapter where more truth is spoken, where feelings are expressed more openly, where the walls between two people aren't quite so high anymore. Now, they may not know exactly how everything will unfold, but they're beginning to believe that moving forward is better than standing still. Then the Chariot card appears. And honestly, this feels like the moment the wheels finally begin to turn. The energy isn't standing still anymore. It's no longer trapped inside endless thoughts. I'm seeing movement, action, determination. This person seems to understand that if they keep delaying things, they'll only keep repeating the same cycle. And they're tired of that. Tired of the words left unsaid. Tired of the feelings kept hidden. Tired of constantly wondering what might have happened if they had chosen differently. Libra shows up in this energy almost like a destination. Not because Libra is perfect. Not because Libra can solve every problem in their life. But because when they think about Libra, they see a more authentic version of themselves. A version they no longer want to abandon. And as all of these realizations begin connecting together, I can't help but feel that an important conversation is slowly moving closer. A conversation that could shift the direction of this story in ways neither of them may have imagined before. There's a feeling here that this person has traveled a very long road only to arrive back at one simple truth, that some connections don't enter our lives just to pass through them. They enter our lives to change us. And honestly, I feel like they're finally beginning to accept that. They're no longer resisting it. No longer trying to explain everything away with logic. No longer trying to minimize what they truly feel. Because the more honest they become with themselves, the more they realize that what they've been searching for may never have been that far away. It was always there, beneath layers of fear, beneath hesitation, beneath unfinished decisions. Then the Lover's card appears. And wow, the energy in this reading suddenly becomes very deep, not overwhelming, not intense in a way that sweeps everything away. It feels more like clarity. The feeling of finally seeing something the heart has known for a very long time. I'm seeing this person no longer thinking only about what they want. They're beginning to think about what the two of you could create together. And that's a very different energy. Because when someone starts moving from me to us, the way they see the future begins to change. Plans change. Priorities change. Choices begin to shift, and Libra keeps appearing in those visions more clearly than before. Not as a distant possibility, not as something they'll think about someday, but as a genuine part of the future they want to move toward. Then the Six of Pentacles card appears. And there's something incredibly beautiful here. Because after everything that's happened, this person no longer wants things to feel unbalanced. I keep seeing them reflect on everything Libra has given, the effort you made, the patience you showed, the emotions you invested in this connection. It's almost as if they're looking back at all of it through entirely different eyes now. They're no longer taking those things for granted, no longer assuming they would always be there without being appreciated. They want to give back. They want to contribute. They want to create something more balanced, more mutual, more sincere. Because deep down, they're beginning to understand that a connection can only grow when both people choose to move toward each other, not when one person keeps trying while the other remains still, not when one person waits while the other continues stepping away. There's a part of them that wants to rebuild things differently this time, more maturely, more solidly. Then the King of Pentacles card comes through, and I have to say, I really love this energy. It isn't rushed. It isn't dramatic. It isn't making grand promises. It simply feels like someone who has finally figured out what truly matters. I'm seeing them think about stability, about things that can last, about becoming someone another person can trust, someone they can lean on, someone they can build a future with. And what's interesting is that they used to focus almost entirely on feelings, but now they're focusing on responsibility, presence, consistency, real-world actions, because they're beginning to understand that love isn't proven only through words. It's proven through the way someone chooses to show up in another person's life, day after day, moment after moment. And honestly, this feels like the point where they want Libra to see a different version of them. Not the version that hesitated, not the version that ran away, not the version that let fear make every decision, but the version that learned from those mistakes, the version that grew, the version that matured, and maybe most importantly, the version that's finally ready. Then the World card appears. And wow, there's something incredibly special about this moment. It feels like a long journey reaching the place where all the scattered pieces finally begin fitting together. And strangely enough, I don't experience this as an ending. If anything, it feels like a door opening, a new chapter, a new season, a new understanding of love, a new way of showing up in each other's lives. Now, that doesn't mean everything happens overnight. There may still be steps to take, conversations that need to happen, distance that needs to be bridged. But what feels very clear is that this person no longer sees Libra as part of a memory. They see Libra as part of a future, and for the first time in a very long time, that doesn't scare them. It makes them want to move forward. My beautiful Libra, this is where the energy begins to settle for today's reading. And wherever this story may be meeting you in your life right now, I hope something that came through today offered you a new perspective, or maybe just a quiet moment to listen a little more closely to your own heart. And honestly, you don't have to force anything to happen according to a specific timeline. Some things unfold in their own way. Some things arrive when we're finally ready to see them clearly. For now, the most important thing is to keep honoring yourself. Keep living your life. Keep moving forward with the peace you've worked so hard to create. Thank you for spending this time with me, Libra. You truly mean so much to this channel, and I'm always grateful for your presence in every reading we share together. If something in today's message resonated with you, hold on to what feels right for your journey, and gently let the rest pass by. Okay, I'll be back very soon with another reading. Until then, take good care of yourself. Keep choosing yourself. Keep trusting your own path. And most importantly, keep being kind to your heart. Thank you for being here. Bye for now, Libra.